Welcome to episode 17 of the Brianna Approved podcast. This week we have on Katey Yurko, my girl crush in the field of research and wellness. Katey is the founder of Violet Fog Potions, a blend of superfoods and adaptogens, and she recently launched a podcast herself called Violet Fog As I Know It. Katey specializes in research in skin, gut, brain, and liver health, and in this week's episode, we get to chat about some of her favorite credible sources for research, her love for Maca root and why it is in her stress blend potions, staying healthy while traveling, and her best piece of underrated health advice. So I hope that you all enjoy this as much as I did, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you learned, and enjoy the episode. Ciao. Welcome to the Brianna Approved podcast. I am so excited to have my second guest, but probably one of the people I respect and admire most in this health and wellness field, Katey Yurko. And Katey, welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh, I am so happy to be here. I've been following you for years, so the respect is mutual.
I feel like we both have these equal girl crushes on each other. Like you're my research girl crush, and I like when people kind of give their own background, but just so people can have a little bit of an overview for you. For those of you who don't know Katey, she is the founder of Violet Fog Potions, which we will talk about today, which is a blend of superfoods and adaptogens. So all the things that all the listeners love. You can learn more at violetfog.com. She also launched a podcast herself, which is called Violet Fog As I Know It. So we'll talk about how to find that and what topics she goes into is that. She's killing it on TikTok. She crushes the videos there, specializes in skin, gut, brain, liver health. And your tagline on your website, brain is the new ass. I absolutely love that. So I want to hear how you came up with that. And I want to just say thank you for keeping research as it should be, because, you know, research is this process of asking questions that look to get answers that are objective. And so what kind of got you into like this research world where you do such a great job of keeping it real and keeping it credible?
Yeah, so I really think that I come from the standpoint of the educated consumer. I always say use my stuff as just a launching pad to go do your own research. Like don't even take everything that I say as fact, go and research it. I think where I do a good job is I can make health and wellness stuff kind of entertaining, fun, and then take that and really go talk to your doctors, experts and all of that. But I am just so madly obsessed with the human body, science, in my own healing journey. It just sometimes I feel like the more that I learn about health, the little that I know, because it's just you learn one thing and then you want to break down that thing and then you want to break down every other little thing. And so it's just, I think what's, made it work for me, be able to have a platform and share my research is just this hunger to want to know and just to always be diving into books, journals, experts. I mean, I have a Rolodex of people that I am constantly texting, calling, and I'll call them and I'll say a sentence and I just say true or false. Why not? What do you think about this? So I'm very into, just as you say, I'm just really into research, sharing it. And then I like to apply it through my own lens. So I'm a very big open book on my own health journey. I have had a ton of shit go down in my health, just from a prior life. It's just, it's kind of sticks with you sometimes. And so I share it through my own lens. So I try to in some ways, I'm actually very biased with my research. People will write me what do you think about XYZ? And it's kind of if I haven't dealt with it or I'm not interested in it, I haven't researched it yet.
Totally.
Yeah.
I always say you are your best clinical trial. And so I think that's why people start to kind of quote specialize or become experts in a certain field, because it's something that you've either, become obsessed with or it's a personal topic to you. And I think that that is what makes somebody more credible in some sense, because they can speak on behalf of it. They can show empathy and sympathy. And then they can also be like, this is what worked for me. And I love that you do that a lot. You'll be like, this is what worked for me. However, this is still the research, So I think that that's really rare to see, nowadays.
It's so important, I think, to say the probability too that something may or may not work. For instance, I remember so many times I see just on my explore page, girls talking about castor oil, for hair loss and stuff like that, or hair growth. And, and it's like, yeah, I think that that probably could work for a lot of people, but I really don't think it would work for that many people. You know what I mean? Like, what I don't like is people stating something as 100% blanket statement. I really like to hear like the probability, or just like just because I think so many people get let down and they like spend their money thinking it's a surefire thing. And it's, not always.
That's what fires me up so much, is that at the end of the day, it's people's health, which is so important. But a lot of people also have already wasted so much time, so much money. And I believe you're probably seeing this more now because you're kind of in the manufacturing game. There is so much puffery that goes on behind doors with
Oh,
raw material suppliers, with price gouging, with, compliance, and being able to have claim substantiation, things that the regular consumer doesn't get. So when I see these like people on Instagram just making these crazy claims, I'm like, oh my God, legally, this is not allowed.
marketing too, I mean, there's just so much that goes into really making a truly good product. And I just think like you said, so many brands are just fluff.
Yeah, it's been crazy. So with
They,
that, then I think this is a great question to ask because, there is so much I think that we could go down research wise. What is the most recent thing, whether it's a trend or a hype or whatever, that when you hear it, it either makes your blood boil or you roll your eyes and you're just like, oh my God, this is a hype right now. And I cannot believe people are like getting into this, or maybe just something that's misunderstood even.
yeah. Well, recently something I've just been like very like interested in is the true like science around collagen and like who it would work for and not work for. Because I mean, collagen is huge. And I've always like actually I like collagen. I'm not anti-collagen. I think great source of protein. There are some studies that show that it can help with skin, although it's not like this huge like youth fountain youth that everyone's like saying. I think it can help with joint stuff, some gut stuff, but like there's actually so many like caveats to using it that none of these companies are talking about. And like no influencers are talking about it, no bloggers are talking about it. And like the more, and I had to like really, really go digging. It wasn't even until I got an epigenetics test that I realized like I had a histamine issue, and I just have become kind of obsessed with like figuring out what I'm like, testy with and not. But collagen, while I do think it's great, it's there's if you have a true histamine problem, like that can be a real issue. If you have a
Yes.
glutamate problem, that can be a real issue. And like what I have realized is just like how many people actually have those issues. And like that is something that's just like never talked about. So that would be my thing that's like kind of making my blood boil, is like not the fact that that happens. I still think collagen is great, but like why is no one bringing up that? Because I just don't think it's like common sense that collagen can be histamine producing.
Yeah.
Like fermented foods, like that makes sense to me, but like collagen, I just wouldn't think,
Yeah, I
so
love that you said that too, because I think it's interesting. People love to put you in a box. Like, just because you're not pro something for you personally doesn't mean you're totally against it.
oh no,
So like just because collagen doesn't work for you doesn't mean other people can't do it. But also, let's look at all of the other factors for who it works for, what the quality is, and what are underlying issues as well.
for sure. Another thing too, and I would love to hear your take on this, is people who are so against coffee. And like, and I'm going to be very Brie right now. As I sip my cafe, as I
Yes.
sip my cafe, and I have my potion brand is an alternative coffee drink, but I am not anti-coffee. Like this anti-coffee war, I understand like gross coffee,
Mhm.
mold, like wanting quality. I understand like not downing 6 cups a day, but there's so many studies that are very pro coffee. It
Yeah.
can be great for Alzheimer's, great for dementia. There's even like a study out there that talks about how it can be good for DNA.
Yeah. I mean, you're preaching to the choir on that one. And I love that you brought that up because the question I do have for you is, as you know, plant compounds is like my love language. And I want to talk to you about anthocyanins in particular and the butterfly pea tea that you talked about in the past. But what people don't realize is that caffeine is a plant compound, and caffeine is what has the active components that can support neurological health. Research on like 400 milligrams a day. I mean, and to your point as well, it's again the attention's in the detail, the details of things. Like,
Right.
is it organic? Like, right, of course. Are you adding sugar and milk and drinking it 30 times a day? All
Yeah.
of those things matter, but again, I think it's like this extreme. People want to belong to a cult or a box or a health, whatever. And it's like
Yes,
the dose makes the poison with everything.
totally. Yeah, and we don't need to be in a box, like you said.
Yeah.
Why box yourself in? There's so much cool information out there, and you don't have to be black or white.
Yeah. So I would imagine you probably get this question a lot too. So being so research forward, like what is one of your or a few of your favorite go-to research platforms? Like if somebody's like trying to weave through the bullshit of, pseudoscience and Insta bros and whatever, do you have
Yes.
any, websites or research articles or things that you would kind of how would you suggest to somebody like getting started in doing credible research and being research literate?
Mhm. Well, I do love to search around through PubMed.
My
I
fave.
really do. Like I just love it, you know.
Yes.
I love going through PubMed. I will say like if I when I first get interested in a subject, my very favorite thing to do is purchase a book by an expert. And it's not that I even agree with everything because a lot of times those people can be so extreme. Talk about putting it in a box, but it's like if you I do think like I don't want to be in a box, but I want to understand the boxes and why people are so far this way and so far that way because it kind of just helps me understand where I stand. So I really do like if you have sat down, spent the time to write a freaking book, cited your sources and all of that, like you can get so much information and you're not distracted by Instagram, other things. Like it's just you and the book. And I find that I retain a lot of information that way. So I'll make highlights. I always will kind of like double cross reference. And I have kind of like, again, like a Rolodex of like people where I want their opinions too. And that's kind of like growing, like you're on that list, I'll be what does Bree think of caffeine? What does she think about grapefruit in this medication? Whatever it is. So I read a lot of books. I like that. I like long form articles. Like I'm just, I'm a writer. I love a long form article, especially ones with the scientific research, put at the bottom, like where there's like a true, not bibliography, but
References. Yeah.
references. Yeah, yeah.
You said so many gems in there for, I think, practitioners and for people who are just looking to be health enthusiasts 2.0, which I think is a lot of both of our kind of demographic.
Yeah.
And I think that's important too. Like what you said, it's one thing to read what somebody wrote, but also not just falling into cherry pick data or clickbait articles and actually going and seeing what was the quality of the study, who funded it. Was it 12 guys in a basement getting paid with pizza? Like, you know what I mean? Or was it a clinical trial? Like, I think that a lot of people don't think about that as well because confirmation bias, right? We believe whatever we believe. And that's why when people get like health information from Netflix documentaries, it that boils my blood because I'm like, they're trying to prove a theory. Don't you think they're going to find research to prove that theory?
Yeah, exactly.
One of the other things I love about you actually is your dad because I think
Both
you and
have great dads.
yeah, I think we have very similar relationships with our dads, just like
Yeah.
us being obsessed with them being obsessed with us, being like homie for life, team
Yes.
Katey all the way. I believe you
Yes.
call him Zabul.
Z-Bull.
I
Yeah,
love
he's
that.
83 and just kicking.
Yeah, and I think it is interesting, and I would love to hear your take on this because even my dad, he's super healthy. He's on the Brianna plan. I'm sure your dad and your family is and all of that, but they still have these like sometimers moments, I call them, where it's frustrating as a kid to be like, "Oh my God, Dad, get it together. We already talked about this, or whatever," or just some of this more hippy dippy kind of stuff. So like,
Sure.
how would you approach somebody who maybe like they reached out to you and they're like, listen, my parents are going through this and they're aging a certain way and I want them to kind of be a bit healthier? Like, how would you approach that conversation or how has that transition even been for you and your amazing dad?
Yeah. So my dad like does think about health for sure. Like he is all about the plant compounds, as you would say, like very much all about that. But like not, but he's not as like diligent with health. I really think like every now and then comes a human being that can like skirt by a little bit more than the average person, with getting away with certain food choices. And it's just something about his like gusto, vitality. I mean, the man just does not stop. And I think that's really what has kept him so vital is he just has this gusto for life. But like with like food choices, I think like some of the toughest things with me with him is he he's about any kind of meat, hot dogs, all that stuff. And like, it kills me a little bit. I'm like, just spend a few more dollars for the grass fed, for the good stuff, and I just find like with that generation, it can be tough. They're just such like bulldogs and like not wanting to change. And so, and they just think they hear words of like, this is plant-based or whatever. They just think it's going to be disgusting. The only way I have been successful in getting them to like try some like healthier stuff, and again, I do think my dad's like done a really good job, is just making them meals that are delicious and not telling them that it's like a nutrient dense meal until after they like it, and then I tell them.
We are
you
the
know
same person. That is literally one of my favorite activities to do, is to
yeah,
basically lie about what they're eating, and then they like it. And I'm like, well, guess what? It was gluten free and dairy free,
I
and you
know.
loved it, and you didn't know the
Yeah,
difference.
for sure. My main thing with them lately has been like, I went home and I went through their entire pantry, and like I wasn't like necessarily being like, get out the gluten, because I get like you can't be like 100% everything, but I just wanted to get out all of the products that had folic acid in it.
That's great.
That
Yeah.
that was like my like main thing.
Yeah, I think that's important too, is to your point. I think it is a generational thing for sure. Like, and also I do believe that their quote stress bucket, inflammation bucket, whatever you want to call it, it was kind of a less toxic time, or maybe they did have a better idea of stress. There wasn't this like label for everything and childhood trauma. And I get it. All of that's very real and we exist with it, but it's almost like too much sometimes. And I
Mhm.
think they had a better idea to balance that. So I think when you're dealing with older people, like you said, pick one or two things. Like, let's cook a meal together. And a non negotiable for me then is like folic acid. So we're going to go through and look and remove all of these things that contain folic acid. I love that.
For sure.
I know one of your main potions that you have is the stress potion, the stress formula that you have.
Mhm.
So, first question, we're going to talk about some of the ingredients that are in there.
Yeah.
I think stress is another one of these things that is like gotten way out of control and has gotten a totally bad rap, very
Mhm.
misunderstood. So, what is your definition of stress? Like, what does your relationship look like with stress, and what kind of stressor are you?
Yeah. So I stress can be a good thing. Like, it really can. Like, we honestly would be dead without it. You need a little bit of stress. Working out is a stress.
Yes.
Hot, cold play, temperature, that's a stress. That's a really, really good stress. To me, like the stress that I think like affects me the most is when it's very, very cerebral, caught in thoughts, toxic thoughts,
Mm.
not just, a buildup of that. I also think it's when I my type of stress is this. I notice when I'm having an issue, when I start to be more of a shallow breather, and I'm like, when was the last time I took an actual like deep breath? Like we are such shallow breathers, and I really think like that's, a stress thing. Um, Also, I think like stress can be found in your posture. Like if you're always just like hunched and down, I'm always just trying to be like more open, because I just know like my body just performs better. I feel like I'm more in my parasympathetic. But like when I'm like stressed, I notice like I start to like tense and ball up a little bit. I carry stress in my like stomach and my bladder. I will clench. I'll just clench. There will be time like days that I'm just so stressed out that I've like, I'll do a body scan and I'll be like, I've been clenching the fuck out of my bladder all day long. And I have bladder issues, so it's like I know that that type of stress is tied to like that kind to my body. So I think that they really do go hand in hand in that way. So that's the type of stressor I am. I like notice it physically and also just like in my thoughts. I like can get like racing thoughts sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's like, unless I deal with that, and it's hard to deal with, like it's not something that you just decide. Like you have to really be diligent about being like, I need to make a change in my life and change my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, you said so many amazing things on that. I actually, one of my classes in my PhD program was called Psychoanatomy. And there's a book called The Mind Body Workbook. I think you would love it if you don't already have it, because it talks about how we say these things naturally, like, oh man, the weight of the world is on my shoulders, right? And they say it a lot because, your neck connects, your head and your heart. So, like, if you're kind of
Right.
not on the same page, so where your body manifests stress. And I think that's why I
I
love to
love
ask,
the
like,
stuff that you say about stress, the
yeah.
connections you make. I like never made that connection of the heart and brain when you talked about that.
Yeah, it's a very real thing. And that's why I also love Chinese medicine, like even kidney stuff, right? So for every organ, there's an emotion. And they say, kidney deals a lot with, what are we letting go of in our body, right? So it deals with fear sometimes. So if we have thoughts that don't serve us. So it's hippy dippy and there's a time and a place for it. There's maybe not a PubMed article on it, which like I struggle with that too, because I'm like, but where's the science? And I'm
I
like, but it's been
know.
around for 5,000 years.
Yeah, and there's some things too that like, and I don't know if you feel like this, but like some things there might not be a scientific study,
Yeah, it
but
just
every now
works.
and then comes a thing where it's like it is worth paying attention to because like you said, been around for 5,000 years and there are so many people when they hear that work on it, it clicks.
Yeah. Most
Yeah.
definitely. I think that that's such an important takeaway for people to realize is like, I think people don't even check in with their bodies. Like, how
No.
I'm having an emotion right now, which, feelings aren't always facts, but where am I quite literally feeling it in my body? And where am I holding on to emotions? Because that stuck energy, it's chi, whatever you want to call it, something's not going well because your body's having a physiological response.
Right. Where do
So is
you hold it? Like I really do hold mine in my bladder. I know it sounds so weird,
Well,
but
I
like
know you used to speak a lot about like UTIs and all of that. So we could talk about that in a second too. But I know for me, I am very same. I think we're both very cerebral, head and heart. I can talk myself in and out of things. And so, for me, I carry a lot of my stress in my like in my shoulders for sure. And then
Mhm.
it's interesting, and this sounds so weird, but like recently I've had this like little knee injury that's been kind of going on. And so in this workbook that I have, the Mind Body Workbook, it was talking about how the knee represents your ability to be flexible in life and like what areas of your life are you being rigid in. And so like obviously sometimes I messed up my knee like playing pickleball. Like sometimes it's that, but then it does
Yeah.
make you take a step further and be like, wait, where am I being rigid in my life? And like, what am I holding on to? What am I trying to control that is causing me to have a physiological? But my body's also very sensitive to stress and the fact that like if my gut instinct is telling me something and I don't listen, like 1,000% I'm getting like legit like knots in my stomach. And then I'll be like, no, I'll just logic my way out of that.
Right, right, totally. For
So,
sure.
how did the stress blend come to be? And what are
Mhm.
some of your favorite ingredients that are in the stress blend for the potion that you have?
So I really think like, and it's been from the start, I didn't want it to just like be a drink. I really, because I think it is so many things. I don't want it to be a product that's like, drink this and your stress is going to go away. Hell no.
Hmm.
It might be just like a little piece of it, but I think for me, this potion, and I've just always loved calling it that,
I'm
is
obsessed with it.
I think it just makes it fun.
Yeah.
And it really is a symbol for me. Like when I take it, it is a symbol for me that I'm in charge of my health. I'm choosing to do things for my adrenals, for my brain. I really think, like sometimes I think like we think that in order to lower our stress, we need to do a 30-minute breath work session. We need to do 30 minutes of stretching, an hour of walking. Sometimes it's just a small pocket. Like imagine going through your whole day, like maybe 8 to 5, just stressed as balls, but and then like that's your day. But then imagine going through your day and then like stopping at 12 and just taking 5 minutes to slow down, to drink something that's super nourishing. You honor it, you make that mind body connection. Like, damn, this is going to be so good for me. This is going to nourish my adrenals. And right after, I'm just going to do 2 minutes of stretching, which, by the way, there's a lot of research that says it only takes about 2 minutes of stretching a day to really make an impact for your longevity long term. And then imagine having that and then going completing the rest of your day. Like my theory is you'd feel a whole lot better going into your day having had just that 5 minute pause. Just a 5 minute pause.
Absolutely. I
You
mean,
know?
that's kind of I think the toxic world that the health culture has taken with everything. Again, like if a little is good, then more must be better. So if I can't commit to a 60-minute routine and whatever, like, then I'm not going to do it at all. And to your point, it's like the small victories 1,000% add up over time. And people think because it's not so profound or it's not a biohack or whatever, like it's simple. And sometimes you literally have to just go back to the basics.
Totally. The basics move the biggest boulders.
Oh, I
But
love that. You should put that on a mug.
yeah, right. The basics move the biggest boulders. It's so true.
Yeah, you got to
But
trademark that like today.
I have to send you the potion blend. I think you'd really like it. I do you like maca? Because
I
maca is my probably my favorite thing that's in it.
I do. I love maca. And I believe I heard on your story that you were having some sourcing problems with maca currently. Because, again, a lot of people don't realize, again, so I work for a private label company. I'm like their director of education. And
Yeah.
I've been in the nutraceutical world for a very long time. And this past year with the pandemic, a lot of these internet startups and people who really aren't into it, they've also just been seeing a surge of raw materials. So there has been price gouging. There has been
Yes.
decrease in quality. I mean, it's wild. So, how have you kind of like overcome that? What are some of your frustrations with that?
So wild. So like Peru right now is having these issues with maca, also quinoa,
Hmm.
and a ton of other things. And so like the maca that we get, like I'm such a maca nerd. I have spent so much time. I just find it so fascinating because I think to really get like the best of the best, it needs to be number one, grown in Peru. Number two, grown in the Andes of Peru. The higher the elevation, the better. The industry standard is around like 12,000 to 500 feet, 12,000 to 12,500 feet above sea level. I really like to get a maca that's 13,000 to 13,500 feet above sea level. I think because it increases the antioxidant levels, what they've found. So, like, that's a little harder to find. Also, to get it gelatinized. And a lot of people always think raw maca is better than gelatinized, but it's not true. Like gelatinized is how they've always done it traditionally. It just means taking the starch out and it makes it so it's bioavailable, like 4 times more nutrient dense, makes it super easy on digestion. Raw maca is tough on digestion.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's a cruciferous vegetable, it's like imagine just like you gotta break it down a little bit. So like the gelatinized makes it so in any studies, they've always used gelatinized. So like I'm just so specific. And then there's 3 different color macas. A lot of the macas, they only sell like one color. I want all three. So like I have very specific things. I'm just really neurotic on that. And so like I get it from a very specific supplier, and it's like when they're out, like they're out for a bit, and so I can go like searching, but then like I'll find another one but then it's like maybe twice the amount.
Hmm.
It's like I don't want to just be like, all right, coming back and this is going to be actually twice the amount of what selling it for. So
Yeah.
but like we're also learning, we're a very young company, like this has like taught me like, okay, I probably have to get bigger orders than I've been doing before.
Yeah. No. I love that you brought up the three different colors of the macas because I think a lot of people don't talk about that. Can you talk about any of the benefits in particular from, I believe it's red and I don't know. I
Red,
actually don't even know the two other colors.
yeah, red, black, yellow.
Yes.
So there's not really too much like variation, but there is just a little bit more antioxidant components, like different
Yeah.
types of antioxidants. And so
Yeah.
like to me, like I'm like, okay, I know it's such a little thing, but I'm so obsessed with like our maca being the best, even if it's just like a little bit better.
Yeah. I
It's
agree. That's kind of like the theory of I always tell people like, listen, you can't unlearn something. Like if it offers three varieties that all have been researched and have benefits,
yeah.
teamwork makes the dream work,
Mhm.
especially when it comes to phytochemistry and like plant compounds. The more nutrients that you can get and the wider, net that you can cast, I think the
Mhm.
better.
Totally.
So besides
Exactly.
being a maca nerd, I know
Yeah.
it's hard to pick favorites, but what is maybe another adaptogen or ingredient that's in the stress formula that you're loving, or just another plant compound that maybe just like doesn't get a lot of love or maybe is misunderstood?
Yeah. So definitely maca is number one. Stress salmon, I just think it is so good for that. I'm also a huge cacao nerd.
Oh yeah, let's. I want to hear all the things about cacao because I think people also misunderstood cacao and cocoa. So could you maybe like nerd out on that for a bit?
Yeah. So cacao, it's, the cleanest, most raw. Like cocoa comes from cacao. And I think cacao is just one of the like, well, number one, you don't want to overdo it because like I think honestly, like most like herbs, roots, all that, like you just don't want to overdo it. Like there really is, you have to keep that in mind. But you also don't want to miss out on it. So I think like, half a teaspoon to a teaspoon a day of cacao is so good for you. So cacao, like what I think is really cool, the antioxidant load, it's huge. Gram for gram, it has 40 times more antioxidants than blueberries. And like we look at blueberries as this like high and mighty full of so many antioxidants, and it is. But cacao has so much more than that. Of course, you want to make sure it's like third party tested, all of that. But I think cacao is super interesting. It has the most plant-based iron of any plant, more iron than any plant. However, it's non-heme, so you have to make sure that there's vitamin C alongside. And I think that it's interesting how the theobromine content, I'm obsessed with theobromine because
Yeah.
that's what gives you that dopamine.
Yes.
And I'm such a dopamine junkie. Like I really am. I just like, so anything that gives me like that little like heart opener effect, that cerebral, like I just love, I love cacao and how it makes me feel. I think it's so good for the brain. And I just think that, and a sensory experience too. Like it invokes all your senses, the smell, taste.
Yeah.
So,
And it's
and vanilla
interesting because
cacao
some
is my
things like that are very they have like these rituals, a lot of these things. That's why I like love kava so much because it's based in history. And I think anything that's had maca, same thing, that has this deep history, like there's some of that that gets passed on with it as well.
totally, completely agree with that.
I love that. So I also wanted to talk to you about butterfly pea tea because
Yeah.
this is something that I don't really know a lot about either. And for anybody who's maybe getting married soon, if you need something blue and it's
Yeah.
not something on your wedding dress, then you could drink some tea and have the girls drink that. And I would love to hear maybe some of the benefits or takeaways for that.
Yeah. I think butterfly PT is super interesting. So like that one has been around for so long. And it's really cool. It's like if you put a little like vitamin C in it or citrus, it turns purple. So it
Ooh.
is like this sensory experience. I just don't think that there's like enough blue foods out there.
Yes.
I think like it's like blueberries, E3 live or whatever, blue algae, you know what I mean? And it's
Hmm.
like some people like are not doing sea vegetables for like whatever reasons. And so I just think it's like this, it's just kind of unknown, this blue tea. So like the anthocyanins, of course, so great for eyesight, so great for inflammation, so great for the brain. I mean, there's actually a whole lot of studies that are done but granted, they're like small studies, but
Right.
still, I just think it's fascinating. And a
I
lot
love
of
it.
these, countries have been drinking it for so long and have longevity, on their side. So I think it's like, I'm just obsessed with butterfly pea. I probably have it. I haven't had it this last month because I just forgot to bring it with me. I've been on the road, but when I'm home, I'm drinking that probably like 3 times a week at least.
Do you have a specific brand? I'm sure people are going to listen to this and say, I want to step up my tea game. Is there something that you suggest, or a brand or a company?
I don't have a specific brand.
Okay.
Because I've been trying a few different ones, and I really do think that they're kind of like all the same, like
Okay.
very, very similar. I do look for organic. I try
Okay.
and look for third party tested, but it's a lot of like really obscure brands doing it. I don't really see like many like US companies,
Yeah.
and so I just always look for organic, always look for and you don't need much, like a fourth of a teaspoon.
Yeah.
I like the powdered form. I like the flour too, but I really just do. I just love powdered everything really.
You are the powdered queen. I love it. That's got to go on a sweatshirt for you as
I
well,
know.
and your
Yeah.
other tagline. So yeah, so for those of you who don't know or haven't been following Katie's journey on Instagram, her and Dan have been doing this like East Coast tour, even though they skipped Jersey, which I'm bummed about, but next
I
time they're
know,
gonna
me too.
come.
Yes,
Do you have
yeah.
any kind of the world is still open, thank God, for now, who
Mhm.
knows?
For
Do you
now.
have for now? Do you have any little tips, tricks, ways to still get your dopamine hit while you're out of your routine and on the road? Things that for you personally help keep you kind of like on your plan, feeling good when things are, a little bit not as grounded as they could be.
Yeah, not as grounded. Yeah, I just so like I'm pretty I try and be realistic. Like I just don't see myself like, well, when we were in Vermont and I was there for a few weeks, we got like a couple week gym membership. But it's like pretty, if I'm somewhere just for a week, those like 45-minute workouts is not going to happen. It's just like there's just something about it. It's like pretty tough for me. So I'm like, but a 20-minute workout can happen. Like that makes me feel like I'm not spending my whole time working out and I'm still getting something done.
Yeah.
So like 20-minute workouts and I am so good with that. And then like I pack a lot of food with me. Like I'm that like person that like I will have a whole extra bag of just I'll have a whole mini suitcase of my supplements and food that I know is just going to be, just regular for me, good for me. I want to like return back to wherever like I'm at, like still feeling good. It's like the worst coming back and just feeling like crap. But you still want to live in the moment, you still want to enjoy the foods, do the things. So it's just like mitigating and like pre-toxing, like in a way, just you know what I mean? Like supporting your detox organs like extra hard before,
Yes.
like if I'm going to be drinking a little bit more, like doing all the things for my liver, my kidney,
Yeah. I love that.
checking levels.
Pre-toxing is another one that you're going to have to. We're getting a whole merch line basically after this podcast
Oh,
episode
I'm
for
going to be
you.
taking notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love that approach that you take too, because I say this all the time. Like, life is meant to be lived.
Mhm.
And, I always joke and I say, like, listen, stomach rolls are temporary, memories are forever. Like, my brother and I always
I
joke and
love
say
that.
that because it's true. Like, yeah, of course you want to still stay healthy. You're not going to go off the rails. But, like, and you've probably seen this too, even with yourself or maybe people you've worked with or consulted with or whatever. Like, before people go on vacation, they're so strict about XYZ and they never touch this and that. And then they go on vacation, they almost like take a break from things or they eat
Mhm.
something and they're like, yeah, it was fine. Like, I felt good. And I'm like, because you're relaxing and you're not stressing
Right.
about stress.
Totally. Yeah, your digestive system is working better. And like the body can handle like the occasional cake, whatever, like you really can. There's no need to freak out over it. If anything, like you're like hindering yourself so much more
Yeah.
if you
The
do that.
body. I always say to people, I'm like, you stressing out about the piece of cake or whatever the piece of cake is in your life is probably more harmful than the actual whatever thing you think is going to kill you.
Yes.
I argue that all the time.
Totally.
I mean, this has been amazing. And before we go and you tell everybody how to find you and your potions and everything, I want to ask you, what do you think is a piece of underrated health advice that can be easily executed? Because I know you had just talked about this on your Instagram, basically saying it's like it's lack of execution. We know what we need to do, but people
Mhm.
just don't always do it, right? And so, what do you think is maybe one small thing or a piece of health advice you would give your younger self that's not like this crazy biohack or whatever? That's like, yeah, I could do this today.
Yeah. Okay. So I know I've like said this multiple times, but I really think stretching is so underrated. And stretching, not just like a little bit of like arm twists here and there while you're working. I'm talking putting the computer down, putting the phone down, 2 minutes of just deep breathing, deep stretching, putting your head upside down, letting the blood flow. I just think it's one of the best things you can do for longevity is to keep the body like super limber. And I just think it's so good for your parasympathetic and it does not take a lot of time. It's free. It helps you do a full body scan. As you said earlier, no one's doing body checks. And I've been there before where I'm like, whoa, how long has like my shoulder been hurting? I don't even like realize it. Sometimes you're just so numb to life. I feel like if you really do just that, like just 2 minutes dedicated full body scan, you're just going to be so much more in tune with your body. Your parasympathetic is going to be activated. Your muscles are going to start feeling better. You're going to sleep better at night. And it just takes a few minutes. And if you don't even want to stretch, just do legs up the wall.
Ooh,
That
yes.
is my favorite thing in the whole freaking world. 5 minutes a day, if I can. I don't always, but I think you feel so energized after. Again, parasympathetic activated. It feels so good. Like I just think it's like stretching is just so underrated and you don't need to do very much of it.
I love that because I joke all the time too, especially when I was traveling a lot. Like, I would be like, I'm going to just starfish on my bed or lay on the floor for 10 minutes. And because people think it's not a certified level 6 yogi expert
I
guru. And I'm like,
know.
you can do your form of meditation, whatever that means, ugly crying to your mom or
Yes.
putting your legs up on the wall.
Yes, exactly.
I love that. So, because I'm obsessed with you, I'd imagine that all of my followers are going to also be obsessed with you and love you because you're just amazing and all that you
So,
do. So, how can people find you, follow you, stalk you, get the potions, all the things? And
aw,
your
thank you.
podcast. Oh my God, please plug your podcast and tell the people what kind of is the vibe for the podcast.
It's so funny. I was going to tell you, whenever I post you on my stories, I always have people write me being like, "Oh my gosh, I freaking love this girl." So it ditto. We got some cool people in our
We
communities.
do. We do.
So yeah, so they can find if they want to check out the potions, vfpotions.com. And then, I'm on TikTok and Insta, the Violet Fog. The podcast is a new thing. I'm testing the waters on that one, just like full disclosure. I'm seeing if it sticks or not, but I think it will. I'm having fun with it. It's just solo episodes that are like 20 minutes or less.
Yeah.
And
The
it's
podcast is kind of stressful because I think you and I are very similar, where it's like you set a standard for yourself almost. So you do something good and then you're like, okay, well, that has to be better now. And then the same thing. I mean, I didn't even have, this is my second guess. I did all solo
Yeah.
ones first too. And it's like, I don't know. What I promised myself was like any momentum is better than nothing. I originally started off saying I'm going to have 4 a month. That lasted for a month. And then I was
I would
like,
love I would love for you to write a book. I'm just gonna put it out there.
maybe this dissertation. I've heard that from quite a few people. Only if you would maybe co-write or contribute on some level.
Oh, I would love that.
Yes. And then we'll make it an audiobook.
Hell yeah. That'd be
Yeah.
so great.
And I'll link all the stuff in the show notes for all of you listening so that you can go check her out and everything. And I'm just really grateful for your time. And you have to come to New Jersey next time, and we'll have
Yes.
a potion party. And
Heck
I
yeah.
can't wait to see the merch that you're gonna create from this podcast that we talked about, all your new one-liners.
I'm gonna send you a blend.
I can't wait. I'm excited.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, y'all. We'll
Thank
see you
you
next
so
week,
much.
and thank you so much for being on the pod.
Thank
Ciao.
you. Bye.